Hi everybody. In the previous lecture, we shared our thoughts on how what is news, what is journalism, what is inverted news pyramid style, what is the structure of a news story. Before we get to what is summary leads for this particular video lecture, I'd like to explain more about online journalism. So when I said in my previous lecture, journalism is a reporting of news or current events. And how does it relate to online journalism? Because now that every newspaper in the digital age, we try to relate or try to converge the media itself to the internet, because not many readers actually now buy a newspaper. So the internet is much more mobile, so that's why online journalism is much more relevant as of today, whereby people can actually read news through Facebook, people can read news through Twitter, Instagram, and so forth, right? So online journalism is a reporting of information through online means. So whereby, for example, you have the Star newspaper, which is a local newspaper in Malaysia. If you go to their website online, it's thestar.com.my. If you have an we have an independent news portal as well, which is Malaysia Kini. We have Free Malaysia Today, an independent news portal whereby it doesn't have a physical newspaper. So this is online journalism has many branches towards it. But before we go further for what online journalism is, it's crucial to actually know how to write news. And with that, the inverted news pyramid writing style applies to all types of medium of news, might it be through newspaper, through television, through radio, whereby you need to cram or you need to highlight the most important information at the very first paragraph. Okay, and with that, we will start on our lecture for today, which is the summary leads. So summary leads, okay, is hard summary in summary leads. Typically, hard news stories use these kind of leads. So what we call what is hard news stories? Hard news stories are news on current events, for example, COVID-19, current issues, other current issues that is a concern of a society, an accident, we use summary lead, a convicted crime news, a murder case, and so forth. We use summary lead, and this is a no-nonsense lead where you use just facts and facts, where we use an inverted pyramid style. As I mentioned before in my previous lecture, whereby it places the essential information up front, other than because in news writing style, we don't do the storytelling approach where we start with one day I went to the airport, then la 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 la, and your most important information would be at the very end. So you try to actually tell the most important information in terms of journalism at the very first paragraph. Okay, so here is the inverted pyramid writing style, whereby your information must have that you must have for your information communication to be successful. The most important information at the very first, additional information that is helpful but not crucial, and if you have nice information, for example, numbers to support your story, it will be nice to have it. And because and when we talk about inverted pyramid writing, especially in terms of news, we always practice 3 to 4 paragraphs to get an overall picture of what is the news about. Okay. And why do we all we use inverted pyramid is that many readers only scan through a story to get an overview of the topic, whereby there are gazillion or hundreds of stories in a particular newspaper or in a website and so forth. So you need to actually say your point at the very first second. Okay, and if a story is written in inverted pyramid format, the editor can simply trim the story one paragraph at a time, going from the bottom up until the story is the right length. So when you work in a media organization, especially as a media, it is important that you know that you work with an editor. If you are a reporter, your immediate boss will be an editor, whereby he or she will edit your story accordingly, slashing the most least important information. So this is why inverted pyramid news writing style is important, so that they can actually edit from the bottom to the up. Okay, the editor can do so confidently, knowing that even though information is being cut, it is being cut in according to importance. So that's why you have to cram all the most important information at the very up, so that the editor wouldn't actually slash your information, any important information at the below the paragraph. Okay, and information crucial to the story, as I mentioned, the 5W and 1H, which is who, okay, who, what, where, when, and why, and sometimes how, known as the 5W and 1H. Okay, and we have guidelines for your summary lead. Okay, so some guidelines for your summary lead, which is only to give you direction. Sometimes it is up to the reporter or to the journalist itself to how you actually need to write your story, because different story and different story have it depends on the report itself, because you have, like, for example, you have three reporters reporting the same thing, but they will have different interpretation of the particular incident that has been reported. Okay, so it's just a guideline. What I'm telling you, what I'm sharing with you today, is a guideline for writing a lead. So the first one would be a straight news lead should be a single paragraph consisting of a single sentence, not more than 35 words, and should summarize at minimum the most newsworthy what, where, when of the story. So you at least you have 35 words in one sentence. If you could not do it in one sentence, you can break it up into two. Okay, for example, here, fire destroyed a house on Main Street early Monday morning. The first one, it summarizes the main what of story, which the fire destroyed the house. Destroy the house. This is the what. Also provides where of story with the phrase of Main Street. This is where. Okay. And finally, it gives the when of the story with the phrase early Monday morning. Okay, so this is an example of a lead as well. Okay, so guideline number 2, in many cases the lead's first verb should express the main what of the story. So always emphasize on what actually happened on the very first sentence. Okay, so for example, here, fire destroyed a house on Main Street early Monday morning. The verb destroyed, right, expresses the main what. Okay, destroyed is a lead's second word, a position that puts destroyed well in front of street. The lead 7 word. There are no other words in the first destroyed, so destroyed is a lead first verb. So sometimes we this is very technical, where we use a little bit of grammar as well, but always as I mentioned before, emphasize on what happened in the very first two words of your news story. Okay, guideline number 3, it should be an active voice, not passive. Okay, active voice, not passive. Active yes, passive no. Okay, a verb is active voice if this verb subject did, is doing, or will do something. So for example, fire destroyed a house on Main Street early Monday morning. So destroyed is the main verb. Fire is a verb subject. Fire did something. It destroyed. So must explain it very carefully. Okay. We go to guideline number 4. If there's a who involved in the story, the lead should give some indication of who the who is. Need to actually give indication, okay? So for example, an elderly Moscow man died Monday when an early morning fire raged through his main street home. Okay? The who is an elderly Moscow man. This is the who. In this case, the who probably isn't someone whose name readers will recognize. Sometimes you don't use a name in the first paragraph, okay? You just generalize it, okay? As a result, the who angle of the lead focuses on what things about the who might be the who important to the reader, okay? In this case, it's the fact that the man was older and lived in Moscow, okay? So basically, the man's name will be given later in the story. So normally, when you want to indicate who had what had happened to who in the lead of the paragraph, you generalize it in your lead. Then later in your story, you can indicate his name according to the appropriateness of your story as well. Okay, we go to the next one, which is, for example, here, still on the who part. Okay, Moscow Mayor Joe Smith died Monday when an early morning fire raged through his Main Street home. So Smith is a local mayor, and most readers probably will recognize his name. As a result, the lead gives his name. So it's another example. And the next guideline number 5 is to write a lead. The lead should summarize the why and how of the story, but only if there's room. Okay, if the most important part is to actually indicate what, okay, where, okay, and who, okay. If you have space, then you include why and how. Okay, for example, here, an elderly Moscow man died early Monday morning when fire sparked by faulty wiring raged to his Main Street home. Okay, fire raged to his Main Street home. Okay, fire raged would be why the man died, and sparked by faulty wiring would be how the blaze began. Okay, so always it is up to the journalist or the reporter or you yourself to indicate uh if there is room to actually include this information in your lead. If there's no room, you can, it's no harm to actually continue it on in the second paragraph of your news story. Okay, and we have guideline number 6. What if what's in the lead needs to attributed, place attribution at the end of the lead. Okay, so normally, especially in Malaysia, you will not every time you read a news story you will have every there is an attribution at the first paragraph, only some. Okay, if it's very it's an important news story from a prominent person. But for example, here you can actually do your lead as a quotation as well. So for example, if you interview a person and the person saying something important, you can actually quote them. For example, here, faulty wiring most likely sparked the blaze that claimed life in an elderly Moscow man last week, the city arson's investigator concluded Monday. You can also do that in certain cases. Okay, and attribution. What is attribution? Use attribution if there are assertions that represent anything other than objective, indisputable information. So, for example, why do we use the previous information, the quotation, the first paragraph, which is, for example, here the Arsons investigator assertion that faulty wiring caused the blaze represents the investigator's opinion. It is back depending to the writer or the journalist's jurisdiction how to angle your news. As mentioned before, media plays an important part in framing the news and information for readers to read, whether it's on a newspaper or a newspaper through a website, through a news portal, and so forth. Okay, and writing the lead, how do you know what aspects of your lead is most important? In other words, should you lead with the who, what, when, where, why? Which of these details most strongly meets the definition of your news criteria? So you always must ask yourself the 5W and 1H before you write your story so that you know which information is important. So for example, when you are on site and trying to find a story, you must ask yourself this 5W and 1H questions. Okay, and we have so what. Okay, so when you write your story, always use the so what test to help you write your lead. So if you must care about the so what term, whereby if you write a lead and you think it's good, but when you always should care where why should a reader care about the story as well. So it's very important to actually take into perspective of another person view on a particular story. Okay, so you always have to ask yourself, so what your story, if your story is good, is it good enough, is it important for people to actually know about your story? Okay, and just a quick one, if there are multiple elements that are all equally significant, then you might use a multiple element lead. So just now we talked about summary lead, and if you have so many important information that you would like to cram on your first paragraph, you can use multiple element leads, and to pull this off you will need to construct a clear simple sentence that captures the highlight of these multiple developments. Okay, which is, for example, a flash fire that swept through a landmark downtown hotel Saturday killed at least 12 persons, injured 60 more, and forced scores of residents to leap from windows and the roof in near zero cold. Note that the verb phrases used is killed, injured, and forced. So there's multiple element leads, multiple information that is very important for people to know that is happening at one particular area. So it's very a powerful story. So you can use this particular approach as well if you come across a very important incident that you need to tell and you need to inform the society on. Okay, and last but not least, use multiple element beats sparingly in certain times and consider breaking the story out into a sidebar. So normally if you have so many things happening in a particular story, so for example if you cover a particular stadium sports story, and suddenly something went fire, the stadium went on fire, and there's so many things happening on in the stadium itself, try to break out your story, okay, into a sidebar, which I will explain later in class. And editors will often use graphic and sidebars to visually convey the information. Sometimes you need to visualize your story to the readers so that they will have a better understanding of the story. Okay, so this would be a very an important, I would say, an important video lecture because to actually write for journalism or to write news, might it be in newspaper or online journalism, even online journalism, you need to know the inverted news pyramid writing style. Is very, very important, whereby if you go to newspaper, if you go to broadcasting, you go to a radio station, it applies the same writing style. So we use the inverted news pyramid writing style. So especially online journalism, we use this approach. Okay, with that, thank you very much for actually listening to my video, and I'll be seeing you soon. Thank you very much. Before I forget, please do the tutorial times for you to practice your summary leads. Thank you. There's 10 marks allocation for that. Thank you very much.